Hello, my name is Gayana Torosyan. We're going to talk about Chapter 1 of our textbook for Advanced Audio Production. Today, the topic of discussion is reasons to be in this class. So we have some advice from Jay Kernis, who was the former Senior Vice President at National Public Radio. If you want to pursue a career in audio production, in radio journalism, in film production, documentary production, in video and other forms, or if you love National Public Radio and want to know how it's done, or if you are majoring in media studies or a minor in one of those majors or minors that we deliver in our department, such as communication studies, you want to make lots of money, this is not a good place for you to be. So let's start by looking at how we're going to accomplish the recording of audio. This could be our own voice, and this could be other kinds of audio. All of you have previously taken classes in audio production, and I'm just going to remind you to either use your own device, Zoom H1, Zoom H4, I think there are Zoom H1N. There are professional versions of this device and there are non-professional, generic and even older models that still work. I have one of those. I have a machine like this and it really works well. So I encourage you to either buy yours or check out one piece of equipment from the equipment room with Professor Dave Giese and have it ready for the first assignment whenever it comes up. I do not recommend checking those pieces out in advance because that would create difficulty for other students, probably in other classes as well. And there are some instructions in the form of YouTube videos incorporated in this link, how to use the machine or how to make your first recording. There might be a lot of overlap between the two videos, so you don't have to watch both. But if you're looking for advice or you have questions about the equipment, first you can ask Professor Giese, you can ask me, and you can find another tutorial online and read the user's manual that comes in the bag with each of those devices. So let's talk about the radio medium for a moment because our work today with audio production is really based on the medium of radio. Radio emerged in the 1920s and became a big hit immediately because as opposed to the telegraph and books, it actually delivered information, music, moods, and atmospheres in a very immediate form. Radio survived the 1950s and 60s when television became a bigger hit, survived the 80s and 90s with video and delayed television formats such as DVRs, DVDs, etc. And it is now surviving with web and iTechnology because terrestrial radio has the advantage of bringing you information that is fresh and straight from the studios. When we say radio, we don't mean the same things as we used to mean before. But right now, we can use those terms audio and radio interchangeably because to us, they probably mean the same thing. They need to be deadline oriented somehow because there is a lot of competition out there, even if you're working with online delivery, such as podcast mode. If you're dealing with current events and happenings and public affairs, there is no reason to delay that information, so you should be aware of time and competition. And especially if you are working in terrestrial radio, some of you may end up working for radio stations, then deadlines are sacred and there is a clock that ticks because audio content is always brought to you in linear form. You cannot go back and forth, up and down in audio as easily as you do so on a newspaper page, even on a book page, flipping back, and in other forms of communication such as the internet, you can browse back and forth and look up and down the page. Audio flows in one direction and it is married to time. Time is ticking, audio flows. So why did this format survive so well? Because it's cheap and easy, it's portable, intimate, it's nimble. It does bring you information in a human voice. And as I said, different modes of conversation, different moods, different environmental noises and sounds help transport the listener into the place where things are happening. So we will be working with sound-oriented topics all the time. Does radio have any weaknesses? Does audio have any weaknesses? Yes. There are no headlines or billboards. Headphones, there will be. We will have headphones. Important stories prevail in the flow, but there is no way of separating them from others. There is no front page or a beginning. The parts are not visibly divided, and you cannot skip things so easily because even if you go back and forth, it is going to require an effort, unlike the internet where you can direct your view, your gaze everywhere, and you can skip things by using hyperlinks. Editorial decisions are influenced by production values, which means the quality of audio could be a deciding factor on whether to use a segment or not. And that is upsetting because the segment that can be tossed may contain more important information than a segment that actually sounds perfect but is empty, shallow, and not as informative. So editorial decisions, just like in video and just like in film, are sometimes influenced by the quality of your audio. Therefore, I urge you to try and use very good quality in order to be able to make informed decisions and choices on which parts of your audio to use. People have to listen to your work linearly. That means that they cannot easily skip a lot of things. And we talked about that, how audio is incorporated on a timeline, and there is no up and down, there's only before and after. People cannot see what's coming ahead unless you produce a promotional piece, a promotional segment, and specifically tell people to listen for something. But if they skipped or missed that part, they're not going to know. Whereas in a magazine or a book or a newspaper, it will catch your attention. If it's colorful, it's big, it's loud, it's in bold fonts, it will definitely catch your attention. So deadlines are deadly in radio, in terrestrial radio, which is the real radio that comes from studios. So let me tell you in a few words what NPR represents. National Public Radio is a network of radio stations that are loosely affiliated, but what connects them for real and very significantly is that they all subscribe and purchase programming from the center, from the flagship stations such as NPR, Central in Washington, D.C., NPR headquarters produce content, programs like Morning Edition or All Things Considered. And there are some other flagship stations in New York City, WNYC, that produces a number of programs, including Radio Lab, I think, and many others. There is another station, WBZ in Chicago, where Fresh Air, no, it's This American Life is produced in Chicago, and Fresh Air with Terry Gross is produced in Philadelphia. So there are a number of excellent stations in bigger metro areas of this big country. And now the national shows, Morning Edition, which is a program aimed at morning commuters, people who drive to work every morning. Yes, they can choose to listen to audiobooks. Yes, they can choose to listen to music or Pandora or podcasts. But if they want to keep their hand on the pulse of events and news and know what's happening, they will definitely want to listen to real radio, real terrestrial radio. So later in our lesson, we will deal with, we will hear, we will explore a few timely stories that came out today, and those will be presented to you separately. But right now, in this presentation, I have incorporated two timeless pieces that for a very long time, unfortunately, would remain in the center of our attention, at least if we care about people. So here is the first piece. I'm not going to play it now. I will ask you to play it on your own and listen to it. It's between 7 and 8 minutes. It is usually the length of NPR pieces. So this is a story about a young man who decided to become emancipated after he left the foster care system, being an orphan or having no parents alive or at hand. His struggles and his speech in court. This is a very interesting drama, and it does include court recordings for your attention. So this is where you can see how the actual sounds of an event, sounds of a happening are brought to the attention of the audience firsthand. And the next one is a small piece about a family that was separated from one another during their crossing of the border from Mexico, I believe. And you're free to listen to it and discuss it later with the rest of the class. So I will conclude this conversation with an invitation to click on those slides and access the stories, play them, hear them, and be prepared for a discussion later on. Thank you and see you in class.